Just 1 second. I'll just a little bit of my story, just really quickly. Is just, I'm older than most people in this industry anymore, and I started when I was 15 years old in the cannabis industry, 40 years being an outlaw before I helped the sheriff get elected up in Mendocino County. And we started with integrity. I started as an organic business. People don't even remember, but it was just people bringing pot back from the South America countries and Vietnam and the military people, and that exploded into this giant industry. And overnight, you had hundreds of thousands, millions of pounds of Thai, Mexican hash coming across the country, coming in the boats, getting dropped off Seattle, Washington, Portland, San Francisco. And then 100,000-pound loads would get dropped off and get, cut down. I was one of those youngest guys getting like 1,000, 5,000 pounds at a time, like 22 years old, getting $1 million to $5 million fronted in the 80s. It'd be like $10 million now. Handshakes, no guns, no weapons, all integrity, all just based upon your word. And it was an amazing thing that ran for 12 years until they did the federal minimum mandatories, busted everybody. And what happened? We all were ingenious. We came up and started doing indoor and outdoor and coming to the mountains and bringing it out another way. But it was still based upon integrity, because if you couldn't trust your trimmers, if you couldn't trust your fuel guy, if you couldn't trust your people, you went down and they couldn't get probable cause. So we built this industry on integrity and on trust and friendship. And Thermal Cup started on that 16 years ago. And as it's evolved, it went from a friendly competition to where it got serious, because all of a sudden there was brands and money and big business, and we moved to Santa Rosa. And that's what we're dealing with now, this integration and interaction of the old school with the new. And that's what we're here to talk about. How do we maintain that integrity and get profits and do it right at the same time? So, I'll start off with Josh. What do you got to say?
Well, I got my start in cannabis, say 1999. I'm 41, so 1999, used to sell Canadian packs. Learned business from that, started a skateboard company called Skate Mafia. We got back into the legal cannabis, I guess you say, industry by opening up a Weed Maps account and doing a trap dispensary in like 2013, just to kind of figure out, I understand business now, let's kind of figure out, how this whole cannabis thing, which really it was just, selling. Instead of selling weed in a plastic bag, you put it in a bottle with a name on it, So that led into me going to THC Design and helping launch that whole brand and doing all of that. And I think, and that was what, 2015, 2016, and then till now, the integrity, I'm sure you guys all know that everything has changed. And a lot of people come into this space with a great history or a great background of, I did so good, and at T-Mobile I was up in this and that, and and they come into the cannabis space, and for me, if you don't understand the black market and the legal market, you're gonna fail. And if you don't listen to the people in the black market and people that have understand and been there, which I'm sure all of you investors or people that have money come in and say, well, this is how we did it over here, and this is how we should do it, and this is what, which I think that's set up for failure, which we're watching right now. And, it's going to only get worse, So if you look at the people that are actually doing, they may not be the biggest or on all the press or have all the PR companies out there, but the companies that are actually really doing it right have been doing it for a long time and have adapted and understand the big business side of it, you know what I mean? And partnered with the right people, and those right people are listening to the right. Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to cultivation and the growing. If your weed's shit, it's gonna, it's gonna be shit, So, and I think that's the problem with all these big cultivations is, we're gonna do our growing techniques like this. We did it over here and we did it over here. But at the end of the day, people that grow really good cannabis have been doing it for a really long time, and it's a craft. You can pump out mass production of shit, but, and that's what, when I almost took a job at Weed Maps in the very beginning. Got a job offer from Ryan Gentleman to help him launch THC Design, and at that time, he had grows and kind of like the trap, I guess you would say, but he growed amazing flower at scale. And at that time, and if you know and understand growing indoor cannabis, it's very hard to do that, So I think the integrity comes, on both sides and understanding both sides.
It's the passion. If you're passionate about it, whether it's skateboarding, if you follow that passion in your life. They used to come up to me, a bunch of farmers or future farmers, that asked me how to do it, how they would be, and I'd say, look, if you love growing tomatoes, if you love growing corn, if you love growing things, you're going to do good. If you're coming up here to make money and just to do the business, you won't be that good. We're not going to be the same.
Well, it's understanding both sides and the people that do have, because as if you come from the core market, you need the corporate financing at this point for the permits and the lawyers and all the bullshit that comes along with it. You need that backing. You know what I mean? So it's just, are you going to listen to those people? The backing, are you going to, you know, it's the listening, and you know, that's where it's hard. And I think that we're learning that because I mean, we have a marketing agency called Bevel Group, and we work with all kinds of different brands, whether it be brands that have been around and been in the black market, or new companies that have raised a bunch of money and they're launching fucking all these brands, you know, with no point behind it. So it's who's going to win. I think the ones that understand both sides and respect both sides are who's going to win.
Yeah, true. I tell you what, convertible notes. I've learned all about 300-page contracts. Trying to learn a different kind of trust with lawyers and integrity, and it's a whole different animal.
At the end of the day, people want to get fucking paid, you know? Like, that's just realistically why everyone's in this cannabis space. Like, everybody's like got a vape pen, and I've been smoking weed, or I smoke a joint now, but let's be real. 90% of the majority of the corporate people that came in here didn't give a fuck about weed, or didn't like it, or didn't want to do it. And now it's, you know, they got the vape pen in their pocket, and they smoke weed, and it's like, you know, my mom let me grow weed when I was 15, you know, so the reason was she didn't want me to drink alcohol, so I smoked weed. So I've been, literally, weed has got me where I'm at. I dropped out of high school and became a businessman by selling weed, you know, so the outside of that, I feel like, I don't know, I can go up here for days and you guys will probably be like, this dude's talking shit, but it's just the reality to it.
Thanks. So?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you just said.
It's the truth.
Yeah, it is. I started in cannabis in 2008. I started from a public policy standpoint. I worked for Richard Lee, and for those of you who know your cannabis history, he basically pioneered a lot of this movement. And through that, I learned the industry through Oaksterdam University, which was like the first education facility that like taught people everything there is to know about cannabis, laws, how to get involved, so on and so forth. And then from there, we started a dispensary chain called Bloom. And back then, in 2000, which doesn't even seem like that long ago, but in cannabis years, it's like a million years ago. Back in 2010, 11, we were going through the permitting process. I'm 25 years old, and I just felt like I could write my own application. And because it was unpopular at the time, I didn't have all these VC firms and these guys that you were just talking about competing against me. And then we happened to get ranked #1. And then from there, just kind of systematically growing the business. And then we were the first to go public, which was hard and very difficult to go through because of all of the banking stuff that we had to navigate and becoming, setting essentially the standards that now MedMen and all these other guys follow. And then after letting go of that baby and letting it do its thing, we started Highland Events. Highland Events was the first event company that worked with a major music festival that allowed for sales at a concert. So we were responsible for outside lands and selling weed to the public at outside lands, which was really, really great this year. Yeah, that was 3 years of really hard work. And then, yeah, but as far as integrity goes, it's totally true. It's where we're at in the industry, especially with all the different players that we're all getting involved with right now. I still have deals that are my favorite deals, that are handshake deals, that are people who I just deal with on a regular basis and over text, and we can fly. We could do so many deals. We could do them quick. And we can do that. Then I have other deals where it's like back and forth with attorneys, and then like the contracts are this big, and some of them go to complete shit, and some of them are end up being great. But it's just, as you were saying, like the old world and the new world, it's I'm more comfortable in that era, but at the same time.
Because then it was all trust. Everything was trust. You front somebody 20 packs, and at that time, you know, you're looking at like 75 G's, you know, you're trusting that person, you know.
Totally.
Nowadays, you can get burned for 100, 200 grand, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, we went out of business. Fucking, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I would say it starts with you. And I think it starts with the individual. And as long as like you're holding yourself to these standards and you're doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, that's kind of leading by example. And regardless of how many times you get burned, it's like you just have to keep that integrity of your name and of your word and keep doing what you say you're going to do. when you're going to do it.
Well, I also think that if anyone has looked at investments or met with people, everyone's the best, everyone's got the biggest, and everyone's raised the most money. But at the end of the day, when it comes to write that check and spend that money, let's be real. Oh, I don't got it, or fucking, oh, we're waiting, or it hasn't come in yet. And then you realize that you're just fucking you're trying to fund something off an idea and raise money as you go. You know what I mean? That's a huge fault in this cannabis space.
Or on the flip side, like you're a company, you've sought investment, you're willing to give up equity for that investment. You're expecting this investment in certain tranches, and the investors can't get it together to give it to you when they're supposed to give it to you. And so, like, the lag and stall and that creates is terrible. And I ultimately, I say this all the time, and especially right now with where we are, time is way more valuable than money. It's,
Is very impressed by what you do with grasslands, and
Thank
you look very young, but you're an old soul for what you've done.
Appreciate
It's amazing what you've done there. Chang, you.
I'd be a little depressed listening to this panel. I got started in 1997. I was fortunate enough to join forces with Be Real from Cypress Hill and start the Cypress Hill Smokeout many, many moons ago. And it was all about music, and it was all about legalization. Actually, I had just come off the Smoking Grooves tour. I was publishing a magazine and talking to Be Real, and I was like, what are you guys going to do for the launch of, at the time, Cypress 4, which was Dr. Green Thumb? And he said, you know what? The label's set up a free show at the Key Club, Chang. It's going to be all press, and we're going to promote the record. I go, what about the fans? And he goes, you know what? Got to talk to my agent. It's all about, our headline play. And I go, well, I think like Ozzy's got Ozfest. Perry's got Lollapalooza. How about Cypress Hill have the Smokeout? And from there, it was, it was the integrity of, one, I had worked with him for a few years through my magazine. Two, I think that if you just do what you say you're going to do, you'll probably go really far. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people have high hopes with other people, and they are blinded by, the green rush, or that everyone's good people. And not everybody's good people. You've got to do the diligence. Any business, not just the cannabis business, if you do the diligence and you do it step by step, and you're a man of your word or woman of your word, you'll get really far in this business, especially the music business. And that's the business that I was in. And cannabis wasn't my life at the time, but it became a part of, it was my business partner's passion that became mine. And so I know that Be Real could trust me, even maybe more so than his manager or his agent and all these other people who are conflicted for their reasons why they worked with Cypress Hill. So be just like the fact that Chang was going to do what he said he was going to do, and he's going to build this amazing platform. And we had a good 10, 12, 15-year run. We were the first festival in Southern California to have consumption on site. I had to deal with a city attorney. I had to deal with the DEA. I had to deal with the police department. Thank God there was a gentleman by the name of Don Duncan and Americans from Safe Access that helped us validate the patients. And we had like 30,000. It was about the music first. So Smokeout was really popular because we had a lot of different genres of music. And all those bands had one common thread, and that was cannabis. So in doing that and getting the consumption on site, a very interesting thing happened in 2015. Or when 2015 came out, companies like High Times, Chalice Cup, High Life Festival, they all came to the Orange Show where we had kind of established consumption. But I still had 400 vendors, and they could not sell weed on site because my band and my business partners were targets. And had we sold marijuana, like High Times sold marijuana or Chalice Cup sold marijuana at the Orange Show, we were leaving millions of dollars on the table. Millions. I had 400, I'd backed up the 5 freeway with our vending load in. It was disgusting. But we couldn't allow people to sell. Mm-hmm. We couldn't allow people to consume. And so I had to sit on the sideline and watch other companies come in and take advantage of the situation. Basically it was a swap meet for marijuana out there, guys. It was like, well, do I call the police and shut down my competitor, or do I do the right thing with this market and just sit back and let it grow? And so in speaking with Be Real and the rest of the guys, talk about integrity, we just sat on the sideline and continued to let it grow, and we figured again, without the traditional market or legacy market, I don't like to call it the black market, guys, there would be no legal market. And that's a big reason why now we're working on High Hopes, which is a summit and a festival next weekend where we're doing expungement and a job fair. And Be Real from Cypress Hill, Ghostface from Wu-Tang, Redman and Bam Marley are going to encourage people to go get a job in cannabis, because you don't have to just be a bud tender or a trimmer. There are 100 related jobs. We're looking for salespeople. We're looking for marketers. We're looking for interns to come into this business. It used to be about, this business was all about nepotism. You don't go with the best people in this business. You go with the people you trust first. That's a problem in general too. That'll hurt business forever. So now our mission next week is to get 30 or 40 of the best companies in cannabis in Southern California and ask them to give people jobs and opportunity. And if they do that, we're in downtown LA, because it's been very tough to get events going in Los Angeles. Los Angeles has not issued one event permit. They can't even get social equity right. So, and I do work with a group, Secret Sesh. You know, they were underground marketplace, and now they're going legal. And we were able to be out in Adelanto and create $300,000 of regulated sales, which is not bad, you know? Basically, Black Friday, Green Friday, right? All the brands offering their product at a little bit of a lesser price so they can deal with taxation a certain way. So, you know, I really encourage people to do what you can, be active, be proactive. Don't sit back and wait for people to do your job. You know, when you're meeting with people, find out about them, do the diligence, ask somebody about someone. Don't just trust everybody. Like, don't be that naive. And, you know, integrity comes from actually doing the homework and grinding. And I know that's what you've done with your events, and I know that's what Preebz has done, and I know that's what you're doing with your events now. And we all have to help each other out, by the way. We have to be as collaborative as possible. Collaboration is the theme for 2019, 2020, guys, because if you don't help each other out, we're all going to fail, because California can't regulate itself, can't tax right, has an illicit market. It's going to go Schedule 2. If we don't mess around, we're still in prohibition. Don't sit back counting your future earnings, guys. There's still work to do, and the people up here are all interested in getting the job done. And I know I appreciate everything that everyone's doing in this room, and hopefully that helps you guys with the concept of integrity in cannabis, because there's not a lot of it. There's not a lot of integrity in the world, period. So don't expect, because cannabis is so communal, that everyone's so nice. That would be ridiculous.
Well, some great themes there. You know, education. We went to about 8 BCC events. They wouldn't even put events on the docket. We had to finally just demand to get on there, and they finally put us on there because they just were going to overlook us. They didn't care. They just didn't understand it. We finally got on there. Our competitors, like Chang was saying, they were running product right through the crowds with quads, not even obeying anything, not even caring. And we chose to drop almost $500,000 into the cup last year to really run a compliant event. It cost us a fortune. We lost money. And it was great for us in the long run because we got a lot of props. The state loves us, and we got lots of opportunities around the country. But we had to make that choice. Are we going to be like them, or are we going to stand with this? And we're talking about them wanting us to get rid of all the product that came onto the floor, take it off the lots at the end of the day. I mean, insane stuff. And we fought through that and just said, okay, we won't get upset about it. We'll deal with it. And you look back when we're growing up, it was all family and stuff, nepotism, you talk about it. And that doesn't really work that well. I have a lot of problems with my families because of that, because then you have to call them out and you got to deal with the stuff. And, it used to be that that's what you found, and now you got to go out and find real people. And so, the Emerald Cup started. We're organic. We've always been organic. We vet everybody out. All the vendors and sponsors and food people. We spend $40,000, $50,000 on a food buyout so nobody sells Twinkies and Ojos. The fairgrounds to do that, and it's been very costly to do that too, but we've never sacrificed. We didn't have vendors for the first almost 10 years. I almost thought I was like Neil Young. It was like sacrilegious to bring vendors into that cannabis event, and then we did. We brought them in. We watched it evolve. SC Labs came in and started testing about 6 years ago. We found out over half the stuff was failing because all the people I thought had integrity in these mountains were more than willing to feed their neighbors and friends poison to make money. That was a very disheartening moment. We had to, but the education of that changed, and over the last couple of years, we've had almost 0 failures. And now with the legalization, the testing, that's gone away. So it's really been a good thing. we vet people out for all of our vendors and sponsors. A couple years ago, people called us out because we weren't vetting 3 owners back. There was a company that was in our nutrient company, and their owners, three people back, were not reputable, and they were saying, "How could you let them in? You got to raise that bar." It was really a proud moment for us, but it's also a responsibility to have to say, okay, we're going to turn all these people down, and we have to go back through 400 or 500 vendors, or actually 2,000 applications, and figure out who's okay and who's not. We still do that. It's a major thing. This year we turned down $1 million offer for somebody that had a organic line, but they had a number of non-organic lines. And I have a thing. I don't care who you were. I care who you are. So it's all about forgiveness and compassion and understanding, but you still have to walk the walk. And if you're going to bring an organic line out but sell 15 chemi lines out the back door, you can't come and sit with us. You can't be with us because that doesn't work. And that integrity, I think that authentic nature is what has been the greatest thing in my life. It's why I work well with cops and work well with all the rednecks up in Mendocino and Humboldt, because at the end of the day, we're all just the same. There's good cops, there's good redneck loggers up there, even though I'm not a logger. I mean, everybody's just working together and the collaborate. Well, you know what? I actually get along better with a lot of rednecks up there than I do a lot of the entitled hippies. To me, it's like I'm a workaholic, so it's like you got to work hard, and they do. And they're the best, some of the best farmers too. I'll tell you what, those old loggers they've been growing vegetables their whole lives. You go up there and see their farms, man, they grow some good pot. So it's all about collaboration, though. Chang bringing that up. It's we have to work together because I watch people. In the old days, it's like nobody cared who was selling what or what they were doing, because if you got away with it and you didn't get busted by the cops, we were all going to sell our bud. It wasn't a problem, so you just wish the best for everybody. Then all of a sudden you watch people looking at each other, sizing each other up, brands, okay, how much you got, what are you doing? And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is like dividing everybody, because it's become really competitive, and these brands are fighting for survival, and these small farmers and product makers are getting wiped out one by one in Northern California. It's an extinction event. It breaks my heart, but at the same time, we're sitting here talking about this exploding new universe coming into reality as fast as we can speak. So I'm happy 64 went, even though we have a lot of problems and challenges with it. I'm happy to see my 93-year-old uncle, Priest, who's smoking cannabis and using it for his CBD, and all my uncles that are cops and lawyers are now giving into it and watching it happen. My brother-in-law is going to speak at the Cup this year. He was a captain of Watsonville PD, a conservative Hispanic drug enforcement cop, got cancer, severe cancer, and now he's teaching his father how to use cannabis, and he's using it every day, and he's going to speak at the Cup this year. So this education and going out and reaching out and working with people and not judging them, we have the 10% of our audience. We need the other 90%. So how do we bring them in? I mean, the skateboarders, the hip-hop artists, I mean, the Grateful Dead, they've always been part of the cannabis industry. We've got them. They're going to be with us. They were just having to hide out because we all get arrested. You couldn't sell it at the events or the shows and stuff. But now we have to bring in the other 90%. And that's how we have to do it, and balance the integrity and not sell out. So that's a huge issue, and something we're going to have to figure out how to move forward with, So, I don't know. What do you guys got to think about the future and how we do that?
Well, sorry if I sounded negative, but but the future, I think, I don't really know. I mean, everything's changing so quick in cannabis, and if you don't adapt, then you know what I'm saying? Like, it's playing as a team. I guess in any successful business, being a team player, and that's just team all the way around. I think the more bigger, whatever you want to say, corporate investments and all these things come in, and the more that we all work together, because at the end of the day, you can have a brand, and if your weed sucks and your harvest sucks and you miss that shelf life, it's not like someone's not going to buy weed or cannabis, because it's not on the shelf. You know what I mean? So I really feel like, I don't even know where I'm going with this, because now I'm kind of nervous looking at everyone. So I really don't know where I'm going with this. So I don't know. I'll let you guys go.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
All good. I'm going to take it from a little bit of a different perspective. So from specifically Highland and what we were able to accomplish with Outside Lands this year, one of the things that came up for us was obviously like this, doing it at that scale. It's 250,000 people over the course of 3 days. And it was extremely exciting for cannabis brands because no one's ever gotten that kind of eyeballs or exposure on their brands, especially the year before when we did it, when it was just education, like the amount of questions that people still have about cannabis, which we think we're like, really, you're still like, but it's true, and it's great because we realize, wow, there's like this whole population of people that we haven't reached yet. And so events and music events are a great way to reach that audience. So what we were successfully able to accomplish this year is having this like ecosystem of different types of cannabis brands there. But something that Highland worked really well with the festival on is how do we make room and space for equity brands and people who can't afford to be there, because being involved in festivals and concerts is so mind-blowingly expensive. It is insane how much money it costs to put something like that on, especially outside lands, because it's beautiful and marketed. It's like everything is designed, right? And so how do we bring in people, legacy, whether it be a legacy brand or an equity applicant or an equity brand, and make room for them? And one thing that I noticed and I've learned is that a lot of promoters aren't as educated or from the music side. And so as cannabis people, we have to not only advocate for our brand and our business and what we want to do, but we also want to hold the line for these other people too. So as we're like earmarking money and allocating funds for these types of expenses to pull off our event, we need to allocate little budgets to make sure that everyone's involved.
Yeah, I think just because I'm not in the festival, but all of the brands that we do and work for are obviously heavily involved in you guys' festivals, and I think the more that you guys are in charge of the cannabis thing, as far as the voice, that's what's going to be the success, because, hopefully, I don't want to say corporate, but hopefully all of the events and festivals you guys have put on hopefully become the ones to look at, you know what I mean? Because you guys are the ones creating it, the ones in charge, you know what I mean? So.
Sorry, one more thing I just do want to note is Highland specifically is a B2B business. We are there to just support the festivals and the brands. We are behind the scenes. We lend our permits, we lend our resources, and we're just trying to, right now, our main focus is to connect the dots to make it easy for everybody to participate. So some brands don't have retail. Some brands don't have distro. They don't have, well, they have distro, but like they don't have transport or whatever it ends up being to just facilitate the transaction, and that's like our only function.
Going with that, maybe I would get blamed because I'm a festival producer, but that helps because I understand the enemy. I work with Live Nation, AEG, Ticketmaster, so having that understanding helps. And I think that, creating events, and, we've done a lot of major festivals, 40, 50,000 people at a time. And as a promoter, I used to look at my events as a liquid delivery device, to be truthful. At least speaking to my distributors on site and everything, because we sold 450 kegs in one day. And Rage Against the Machine and Wu-Tang Clan at Glen Helen broke the record in IE, so we know how to move product and sell food and still stay authentic on the stage, because it was about the music. If the people aren't there, you're not going to sell the beer. And truthfully, just looking at it, I could tell you that marijuana sales will never touch liquid at a show. Just accept that now. With the regulation and the tax, you're always going to be better off selling a bottle of water that cost me 17 cents for $3, or able for me to sell beer, a lot cheaper, because the BCC makes me treat marijuana like an opiate on site. I can't even return it if I bring it out to sell it. There's all kinds of problems. The BCC did not obviously sit down with any event organizers or promoters to talk about how they're going to scale sales on site. So we can talk about successes and failures, and I think failures are better. I lost $5.5 million on my 10-year anniversary of Rock the Bells as a promoter. I felt like it was a great lineup. Kendrick Lamar, A$AP Rocky, and I'd still book the same event today that I would have then. So don't make a mistake. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Just don't make it twice. That's what I tell everybody, and we would succeed. But like creating events is important. I think events create community, and it doesn't have to be 50,000 people in the park. As a matter of fact, our event that we're producing next week is in a historic hotel with 4 sitting presidents, Ronald Reagan lived upstairs with Nancy Reagan, and I swear to God, they probably created the Just Say No to Dope campaign up there. And I'm happy to say that I'm going to do a distro-to-distro dinner in their friggin' living room. Because a lot of what's been going on has been buyers and brands in the marketplace, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's so much more going on with the entire chain, and I know it's tough for brands in general. The concept of having an experience at an event is stressful for people. Building a booth, getting everything together, investing in that investment. What is the ROI? Are the buyers going to be there? You know what? The buyers, the growers, the distributors, the marketers, the event producers, you got to get them all together and get them just to talk. And if they could, if you could get everybody together to have a conversation, to share their pain points, you know, we'll be a better industry for it. So big events, small events, events. I'm up here on an event panel. We're talking about integrity, and I really think it's the best way for people to interact. You're all here trying to figure out something. You know, how do we survive in this business together? And we talk about collaboration, and that's what's important. If we could all work together to make the experiences better, I guarantee you, all three of us could sit down with Lori Ajax and say, why didn't you speak to an event producer before putting out regulations? Because they didn't. They literally came to Secret Sesh when I was in Adelanto and said, Chang, thank you for producing this event. 2,700 licenses, 64 promoter licenses, and at the time, 19 event licenses. How many bars are in America right now? How many concert venues? How many sporting events? I could take my kid to a Dodger game and it's Miller High Life all day long. You know, I think there's problems there. And we need to balance that out, and we need to just talk, share, be honest, talk about the problems. I could talk all day about some cool things I did in the past, but the best of what we've got is in front of us.
Exactly. And you know, my partner's Corn Capshaw, who discovered Dave Matthews, has Star Hill Presents and Red Light Management. And Corn's a brilliant man, but he's a little clueless. He realized he's part of Outside Lands, and he realized that they did almost $1 million through Grasslands. And then our partners explained to him, we did $20 million through the Emerald Cup. And he went, $20 million? Why didn't somebody tell me? And he said, well, because you weren't aware. And so they're going to realize very quickly how much money is there to be made, how much, and I'd actually like to debate that with Chang about how much money is going to, with the alcohol, because Corn was talking about looking at the numbers, and he said, I think cannabis is going to give the liquid side a run for their money with
I'll take Corn Capshaw right now.
Well,
let's go.
It's a $5 beer. It's a $30 to $60 buy. But that's he's got the caveat of them opening it up, with letting it really happen easily, and you know, like they do with beer. Just make it an easy sale. You don't have to lock it up. You don't have to throw it away. You don't have to have bank guards with guns and stuff drawn. Just let it go real. When that happens in a couple of years, and Lori is learning, they're all learning from us, because that was the one weak part of the whole business, was they didn't understand events. We're teaching them. That's what we're doing. That's what Sawa's doing. That's what Chang's doing. That's what we're doing. We're showing them the right way. I love Dougie, but I don't know if Chalice was quite that. High times we won't even go into. And you know what we're going to do is teach everybody how to do it right, so we can open this up, because it's going to expand into every aspect of the industry. It's going to be there. Every event in this country is going to have cannabis coming into it, and they're coming in quickly. So it's going to be the right type of integrity and authentic presentation that's going to deliver that to people. And you know, I have the Emerald Cup, and I'm relaunching our brand this year at the Cup, and I realized how much they're going to charge me for a booth and what it's going to cost me to set up. And I went, oh my God, how could you guys be doing that? I don't get a break. What is this? Because like Sal will tell you, it's not cheap to go and do that. It's expensive to deliver, and it's unbelievable for me to look at it and think, this is what these guys are paying. And you know, God bless them. Now, most of them are getting a return on their money. At our event, they do. The ones that are good, you know, Grasslands and stuff, are doing well. We don't need to go into the rest of them, but we'll leave it at that. But I'm really excited for the future. I'm excited about events. We have about 10 minutes left. We can go into some questions if people want to. If they have any, we can keep going.
So you're changing, you're changing your production team up of this year. What made you decide to do that, and how do you think it's going to affect the festival?
My production team? Well, I'm not Chang, so I'm not a world-class event promoter. I did small events up in Northern California, so when it expands to 30,000 people, and you have to run a city for the weekend and deal with security issues, and you got to bring people like James Hathaway that works for Dave Matthews and world-class people. I brought Red Light and Star Hill. Picking your partners, I had some, I was offered a lot to partner with High Times, and I turned them down. We didn't even discuss it because I'd already cut a deal with Red Light, and I wouldn't even discuss it because I knew who they were. And I made the right choice in an integrity partner because they brought a world-class team in and said, we're going to make this thing, we're going to spend a lot of money in the front end to build this right so it can be built to move around the country like Lollapalooza or like a major tour. And so we did that. It cost us a lot of money the last couple of years to put that in place. But if you look at my team, we were talking about it with Josh, I become a much smaller part of that team every year. We just hired a world-class marketing guy. And I'm happy about that. I'm surrounded. The best thing a person can do is surround yourself with brilliant people and not be intimidated by that. You look at Steve Kerr with the Warriors. He's got the best assistants, the best people in the world because he knows it makes him look better. So how's it going to work for me? It works better every day. We did a compliant show last year. We had no problems. We got a standing ovation from the fire department and all the county and city officials because they'd never had a non-event where there was nothing that happened at anything at the fairgrounds ever. And we were a cannabis event and we had nothing. We got a standing ovation from 17 people at the board of directors meeting.
You put on an amazing show last year.
You just talk to God about the rain, okay? Let's see what we can do about that. That's all we got to do.
There was nothing that you could do about that.
Yeah, it was an act of God. It happens. Like Chang said, you win some, you lose some. I wouldn't change it. You can't do it. They tried to get me to move into the springtime, and I wouldn't do it for the world because we're a fall harvest. We're a celebration of that. We're a family gathering, the tribe coming together to celebrate what we do. And so it's a contest. It wouldn't be the same later on, So.
Hey, Tim.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Great presentation. A lot of the investing community, a lot of the corporate world is now opposing federal legalization because they're concerned it will impact the kind of investments they made state by state. You guys, anyone have any comments on how cannabis in the cannabis world, in the cannabis culture, can take on now this new challenge to opening up and ending stigma of cannabis?
There's no stopping it. We're over the top of the roller coaster, and it's just going to keep riding. There's just no way to go. You got Constellation, Coca-Cola. We're likely to have Joe Montana coming in with Caliva. It's just too big. The medicinal side finished them off. They could fight us pretty good until we got the medicinal side going. And now, with all the money coming in to back us up, the big boys are going to fight that. There are some people that have vested interests for the state by state, but it's not going to hold it back. I think that whether Trump or the Democrats, somebody's going to bring that in.
And more importantly, nobody can do shit without fixing banking. So we all have to get on board with fixing banking, and in order to do that, we have to work with the federal government. And so if that, and quite frankly, what we're seeing out of Oregon with the influx of product, shipping across state lines is going to ultimately be a good thing for all of us.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. That banking thing's a big issue, and it's going to fall too.
And 280
Oh,
taxes.
Oh, the cocaine tax, yeah. Yeah, Matt's a federal attorney here who could be speaking right here with us, and he's very well informed and stuff. Don't you think, Matt, it's going to fall? You seem to think that it's not going to.
What, the Senate going to vote for the...
The cannabis will be federally legal within 2 years?
Well, that's different. You don't think so?
What do you got?
Well, let me go one step further. Cannabis legal, I see a head shaking. What about the SAFE Act in the Senate before the elections or after the elections?
Are we gambling? Are we?
You don't want to ask me about politics.
I have a hunch it's not going to pass, but that's not saying I don't want it to pass. And then that's also not saying that I don't think it's going to be corrected in the next 3-ish years. So I'm a gambling girl,
optimistic.
obviously.
I think it'll happen. I never thought we'd have sheriffs at my place talking about legalization. My brother-in-law, chief of police, coming up here, and I watch it all coming in, and I'm old enough to see it. It's just a matter of time. Maybe it'll take another year or two, but it's coming.
What are you guys doing about it?
Yeah.
Right? That's what I would say. You can drive the conversation. You can act. You can vote. You can talk. You can educate. I've got a database of 160,000 people who have bought tickets to our shows over the last 20 years. Oftentimes when artists feel compelled about something, they'll call us to help them march on City Hall, the federal building, deal with the League of Cities, whoever is the button pusher, right? But the button pusher is us. And it starts with us, it starts with education, it starts with doing something. So you can sit here and invest in a bunch of stuff that you have no say about, or you can do something about it. So I think that, again, education, acting, writing letters, all of it's important. Every single action that you can take, coming to this summit, talking about it, learning about it, meeting us, engaging, sharing your business cards, and then following up. Don't just come up here, ask a couple questions, hang out, and leave. That would be horrible. You guys are here to collaborate with all of us, not just us on stage, with all of you in the audience. I don't know what you guys do, but I can tell you I wake up every day doing everything I possibly can to make my family better, my business partners better, and myself better. And I've learned a lot. I don't know half of it, and I love hiring up, for sure. I think that partnering with people who are better than you is something that, unfortunately, you maybe learn after you're a single or double OG in this business. But if you can not go through those same mistakes that everybody else is going through and educate yourself, you can have a massive impact. So we can sit here and speculate all day, but what are you going to do about it? That's what I'd leave you with.
Okay. Is this on? Oh, great. Thank you. That's an excellent segue to my comment and question. Hi, Tim. Hi, Salva. Hi, everybody. I'm Elise McRoberts. So the comment is why Lori Ajax and they didn't talk to a lot of producers and promoters is because they didn't show up at City Hall to activate. The reason we have an event organizer's permits is because of people like me and those who were there and told them we needed it. We didn't have a lot of support, and people suddenly weren't into events until now. There's big money, right? Well, with that, my question is, with big money coming in, and I come from the music industry, and so we saw this happen there, you know, the Live Nations and the big promoters come in, it took away a lot of the culture and the fan experience. So with all this big money and in what it costs to be part of an event, and I'm proud to say we'll be at Emerald Cup this year, how can we preserve the culture in cannabis and preserve community? And thank you, Salwa, for mentioning equity. That's a huge part. But what we're seeing in the industry is this division of brands with money and brands without. And you know that's a huge problem because that money doesn't dictate quality products or quality people or quality healing. So in the end, you know, how can we all work together, the cannabis industry with promoters and with the big money, and you know, preserving our, like Emerald Cup, the good stuff.
It's really hard because events are driven by money too. And with the Emerald Cup, we're watching these big brands come in. They have all the money. The small people don't. We try to make as much space for those small people as possible. But I'm watching them die off one by one. They don't have the wherewithal to compete. They don't have the background, the social media skills. So it's heartbreaking to see all that go. And so you've got to like circle the wagon and get the best of the best and keep going. Live Nation and some of these companies aren't going to come in for a little while because it's not federal yet. So it's going to be still the people who are willing to take risks like us on some note. I mean, not publicly owned. But it's one of the most challenging questions that we face every day is how to help those small farmers and small product makers still exist, you know?
Yeah, I would say that for Highland, obviously compliance is our number one priority. It's like we just cannot mess around with anything anymore. Like we are 100% compliant all the way across the board, especially with the types of events we do and the scrutiny that we have to go through. The state of California is definitely starting to audit people and really pay attention to these things. So just in order to be compliant, to effectively do a distro-to-distro transfer with the transport, hold up the product for the length of getting it barcoded, then shipped to the event, have the event, count the product, send it back. That hold up in cash flow is expensive. So if those brands, there's a barrier to entry. Like it's like, and a lot of people just can't afford the barrier to entry, and that's just the state of California. And we worked a shit ton on AB 2020 and passing all the event regulations because we felt that that was an important cornerstone of the cannabis community because our community was always founded upon getting together and gathering, especially during the medical Proposition 215 when everything was medical. People would get together to discuss their ailments and what things that they can do to provide to get relief, right? So events now on this huge mass larger scale unfortunately, the reality of it, there is a barrier. It doesn't need to be crazy expensive, but it's something that those brands have to plan for. They have to be out that amount of product. They have to like maybe tag it on to a different transport. Maybe their distributor is can work with the other distributor. So it requires a lot more effort and planning for those brands. But again, as we mentioned earlier, as long as like the cannabis community is working with the world-class promoters in making sure that we're just advocating and allocating space for whether it be equity or the legacy brands or smaller brands, that sentiment is just being upheld.
So, I think it's a very interesting thing that you mentioned. For me, being an independent promoter gives me a lot of freedom, meaning I don't have to listen to the machine to tell me who to book or what venue I go to. With freedom comes responsibility. And if you're talking about events, let's just talk about venues. There are not enough venues. In order to get a venue, you have to work with the local jurisdiction, then work with the state, and it starts there. So it doesn't have to be a music festival. It could just be a movie night on a rooftop. It could be in a park, getting together and just having a good meal and smoking a joint. If it doesn't start there, then if it's not that simple, then let's just not even go there. Because distributing pot at Coachella is not going to happen until I can just do it at a very small scale on a regular basis. People are up at arms and totally stoked about like lounge licenses right now, right? And I'm excited about it. I think it's cool. It's a cultural change and a shift, and that's one way to have an experience with cannabis. And basically, we're forced to basically consume in our households because it's not okay to smoke. Technically, it's not okay to smoke at a concert. San Francisco's kind of cool, though. They passed a law that said it was we're gonna go outside of the fairgrounds, right? And so, state law now. State law. So, even better. But I just remember San Francisco being one of the first cities to do something there. So I wanted to give it props because I came to school up here and I appreciate the Bay Area. But it's very difficult to have a cannabis experience. When I called LAPD about our event, they said, "You're the first promoter to call us, Chang, and ask us what our perspective was." And they could not give me an official response on an email or a text, which gives you the state of what's going on. Because in the city of Los Angeles, there's LA cannabis regulation, and then there's the state. And again, frustrating for me being a promoter in LA, when you've got PD saying, "Oh, can we get you a pilot license, Chang?" Obviously, you're an activist and you're a good promoter. Thank you for calling us. Don't state that you're ever going to sell pot, distribute pot, consume pot. That's a horrible place to start. So, let's find. For me, I find myself talking to mayors and council people who have already passed legislation locally to see if they would even be willing to have an event in their city so that we could try to generate some revenue. And you'd be surprised. Even money-hungry politicians are just lazy. Lazy. No one wants to be the first. No one wants to make that effort. Everyone wants to draft off of someone else's hard work. So man, help us do it. When you find the promoters that are out here actually taking it, I think we're all unicorns, or we're sick people. I've had my business manager tell me, "Chang, have you spoken to your wife? Are you okay? You still want to promote a show?" Because it's the only business that everybody else is guaranteed to make money except for you. So it sounds like the cannabis business, actually, because I was like, oh man, I lost $5.5 million. Maybe I can make more money selling cannabis legally. Business is business, guys. Just good product, good price is going to win. There's going to be 99-cent grams. What are you going to do then? I'm going to sell them. That's where the market's going. So be creative, collaborate, work with great people, and innovate wherever you can. Support the people around you that are doing good things.
We're going to have to close out. You want to say something quick, either of you? Before you go?
Thank you for having me, and nice meeting all you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming. It's all about education. Get out there and do it, like Chang said. And, the education, our mayor of Santa Rosa is a former police chief, wouldn't come to our place for 5 years. He said he wouldn't touch the place. He's coming this year, and he's asking us to teach people about regenerative farming and how to bring cannabis to the whole community. So it does work. Go out there and fight for it.